Check 1, 2, mic check, mic check. What's going on, Security Plus Slayers? It is Saturday, and I am sorry that I'm late. I typically am painfully early to everything. Today I'm late, and I'm sorry. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to switch my screens around real quick. Put that there. I need to take DJ BSEC's class on OBS so that I can get my stream popping off like Dr. Jerry and DJ BSEC. How is everybody? Let me know if I'm coming through clearly. Let me aim my mic. Check 1, 2. I see Malware Cube in chat. What is going on? Let's go. Space Tacos LFG, I'm with you there. Hey, Regine Franklin, good to see you. Tree Hugger filling up the chat. This is what I'm talking about. We've got newly minted CISSP holder DJ BSEC, aka Ben Sherrill, in chat to join us. We're gonna make sure we give him nice and easy questions so he can feel super smart. Let's go. I got my holiday themed mug here. I am that guy. I'm somewhat annoyingly stoked about holidays. I love them. I like Thanksgiving, except for being around a lot of family makes me anxious, and so it is what it is. Cool. I see a lot of our classmates here in chat. I hope everybody's doing well. Work's been good. Just plugging away at EDR Solutions, getting ready to take the well, they changed the name of it, but it's the SOC 101 associate from TCM Security. It's pretty dope. Let's see if it's up there. TCM Security recently revamped some of their certifications based on difficulty, right? And so I have been preparing for this Practical SOC Analyst Associate certification taught by Malware Cube, who was just in chat. But it's a phenomenal course, and I'm really excited for that certification. I took their PJPT, the Practical Junior Penetration Tester cert, a couple weeks after it came out. That was really, really fun. And so that's next on my agenda for some hands-on certifications. All about the hands-on life. Before we get too far, if this is your first time here, welcome to Slay Security Plus. My name is Jesse J, aka the Cosmic Cowboy, and here for the next hour or so, we're going to crush some Security Plus practice questions. We do it in a live environment to keep the community being built, and then to help you see what the questions look like as you're preparing for the Security Plus. I'm a little frustrated that CompTIA got bought out by a private equity holder, but it is what it is, and so we're going to continue to do this until anything changes. You're going to kill it. Let's hope so. Some of that hands-on stuff that I'm doing at work too. At any rate, we study Security Plus questions using some of the industry's best practice question materials. We stand by the Professor Messer method when it comes to their type of practice questions. And these practice ones from the CompTIA Cert Master series have actually been pretty darn good too. I think they're pretty well a good analog for how the actual exam questions are built. I got asked by somebody who I'm helping study for Security Plus, kind of, with some resources on how to study for Security Plus, and I'm going to drop this link in chat because I think it's fantastic. Let's go here. I know you can't see my screen. We will get there. There's a specific video that I want to get from his course. Okay, this is Pete Zerger, aka Inside Cloud and Security, and I think he's got a fantastic a fantastic video series on preparing for Security Plus as well. He has got a full video on how to study, and I took that into what I did for my preparation, and I think this is kind of a really almost like a dead to rights method for studying these certifications. Brandon Maverick, hey everyone, finally caught a live one. Welcome to the party, pal. I just dropped a link in chat. That is a really good way to study. It kind of gives you the method that you can incorporate by coming to these live study sessions, as well as the online videos, as well as maybe a textbook or an online book, and then of course practice questions and how to combine those to really maximize your efficiency in study time. Because let's be honest, like he says in the video, there is no first place for the most time it takes to study. For some people it's 3 months, for some people it's a couple of years. We have some people in chat who already have their Security Plus or other certifications, and they just like the community and that to stay sharp on the fundamentals of cybersecurity. Okay, let's get into some practice questions. Before we do that, I do want to mention Slay Security Plus is proudly sponsored by Simply Cyber. With that being said, let's pay some bills and get back to the action. Maybe. Let's try that again. Let's pay some bills and get back to the action.
Are you feeling lost in the vast world of cybersecurity, overwhelmed by technical jargon and confusing career paths? You're not alone. That's why I built Simply Cyber. Hi, I'm Dr. Gerald Ozier. Come join Simply Cyber, your supportive and inclusive community for navigating the exciting world of cyber. There's so much to take advantage of. Master the skills you need with Simply Cyber Academy, offering in-depth courses aligned with the GRC analyst role. Never feel isolated. Connect with fellow cyber enthusiasts and professionals in our thriving Discord server. Ask questions, get feedback, share your journey. Check out the Simply Cyber YouTube channel, delivering insightful interviews. What are your thoughts around, web app pen testing as entry level? And I included bug bounty here because that's very accessible to everybody. Practical skill demos and daily cyber threat briefs, all hosted by industry experts. There's so much more to discover. Are you ready to join the community and empower your future? Visit simplycyber.io/socials for all the links and start your cyber adventure today.
Boom. Thank you, Dr. Jerry Ozier, for your mentorship, your friendship, and then sponsoring Slay Security Plus. You've always been a supporter of community-driven efforts like this. Also want to remind everybody about Study GRC. Our buddy Chris Whitlock has been killing it with Study GRC. So if you're trying to make your way into cybersecurity via the GRC path, he does a live similar type of environment. Definitely a little different because it's his own thing. But check out Study GRC. I'll drop that link in chat as well. Check out our friends over at Study GRC and tell them that JC is Siancha. I just woke up from a power nap. I know that's not an excuse, but I also took a little a dad nap today, a Saturday power nap. So I gotta get my mouth moving. Watermelon. All right, let's take off. This, what I am excited about is that CompTIA updated their the Cert Master platform. So back when we were doing this, you'd hit done practicing and it would submit the practice test, and then you're kind of stuck there. They actually let you go back, come out and come back to it. So we're going to continue where we are, or continue where we were. Hopefully it remembers. It said continue, so we'll see. Let's get into some questions right now. To meet growing concerns of unauthorized access in the company's network, a software engineer reviews protocols used in the 802.1x standard that will assist in forcing computers to fully authenticate before being granted access. What statements are true regarding the Extensible Authentication Protocol, or EAP? Select the two best options. A, it provides a framework for deploying multiple types of authentication methods. B, it is used to establish a trust relationship and create a secure tunnel to transmit the user credential. C, it performs smart card authentication without a password. Or D, it allows the authenticator and authentication server to communicate authentication and authorization decisions. This is a good one. So pick two, pick two. And remember, when you're studying for your exam, when you see where it says pick two of the best options, those are typically going to be a weighted question. CompTIA gives you partial credit on the answers that you get right. So if you pick two and one of them is incorrect, but the other one is correct, you could get partial credit for that one that you get correct. So that should be a little bit of a confidence builder as you're going in. Whoa. This is a tough one. What do you think, DJ BSEC? CISSP holder, what do you got? What statements are true regarding the extensible authentication protocol? Select the two best options. I'm going to take out option C. It performs a smart card authentication without a password. Select the two best options. It provides a framework for deploying multiple types of authentication methods, which is true. It is used to establish a trust relationship and create an unsecured tunnel to transmit the user credential. Does that really say unsecure? It is used to establish a trust relationship and create an unsecured tunnel to transmit the user credential. Well, if our whole goal in cybersecurity is CIA confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the words unsecure don't make me feel warm and fuzzy, so I don't believe that is it either. What do we think it is in chat? Right, I wanted to say B as well. Come on, class. Give us your best answers. Do you think it's A and D? You just want to fly through this one? I think it's A and D, but I could be wrong. Let's send it. Yeah, so we're left with A and D, A and D. Okay, so we were correct on one, which was A. B was not correct. And it looks like D was not correct. The correct answers were the EAP, or Extensible Authentication Protocol, provides a framework for deploying multiple types of authentication methods. That's true. We knew that. We know it's not the one that's unsecure because that makes no sense. But it is A and C. The Extensible Authentication Protocol performs smart card authentication without a password. Okay, I missed the vote on that one. That was a tough one. And then I had selected D, which was incorrect. It allows the authenticator and authentication server to communicate authentication and authorization decisions. Remember that would work with a radius server and not the extensible protocol that allows authenticator and authentication server to communicate authentication and authorization decisions, right? I think more like a lightweight directory access protocol or something within maybe Active Directory where we have our permissions assigned. And remember the difference between authentication and authorization. Let's just go over that if you're studying up, or I'll refresh myself here. So authentication is proving you are who you say you are, or the identity of a machine says it is who it is, or a service, right? It is what it says it is. And then the authority part, or the authorization part, determines what it's capable of doing, the amount of permissions that it has within a system. Authentication, who? I always think of authorization as what it can do. Who wants an insecure tunnel? Nobody. We ain't got no time for that. DJ BSEC, I made you miss it? That's like being arrested for doing something dumb and then telling the cops, you made me go to jail. Nah, bruh. You made you miss that. A network administrator conducts an analysis on the company's network in attempts. Hold on. A network administrator conducts an analysis on the company's network in attempts to determine attack surface with the intent of reducing exploitable vectors. When analyzing the potential attack surface, which layer allows unauthorized hosts to obtain valid network address, possibly by spoofing and communicating with hosts in other zones? Layer 3, Layer 1, Layer 4, or Layer 7? And we're talking about the OSI model of layers. DJ B-Sec laughing my ass off. I would totally say that if we got pulled over, Jesse made me do it. And most likely I did. If you've ever driven with me on a road trip to Wild West Hacking Fest or been in the car, we tend to get a little squirrely from time to time. Well, we know that it's not layer 7, right? It's the application layer. And we know that it's not layer 1 because we know layer 1 is the physical layer. So we're left with either 3 or 4, which I believe are the data and the network layers. Space Tacos, what do you think on this one? I know you're going, oh man, I just got called out. Going back through chat. Midori K, don't forget that TCM has a Black Friday sale. I agree, don't forget. Sandex says A, layer 3, the network layer. Layer 4 is the transport layer. Oh yeah, data is layer 2. You're right. Thank you, DJ BSEC. Physical data transport. Let's fire away. We're going to say layer 3. For this scenario, layer 3 allows unauthorized hosts to obtain a valid network address, possibly by spoofing and communicating with hosts in other zones. Not allowing these actions, layer 1 allows authorized hosts to communicate to wall ports or wireless networks and communicate with hosts on the same broadcast domain. Layer 4 allows unauthorized hosts to establish connections to TCP or UDP ports and communicate with application layer protocols and services. And layer 7 allows the same processes as layer 4 by allowing unauthorized hosts to establish connections to TCP or UDP ports. Let's go. The Chief Information Security Officer at a medium-sized healthcare company conducts an audit of the company's current security infrastructure. The company has next-gen firewalls, or NFGFWs, or NGFWs, deployed at all external network boundaries, and the CISO is evaluating the possibility of supplementing or replacing the next-gen firewalls with a UTM or Unified Threat Management devices. If the primary concern is to increase the network security without introducing significant management complexity, which of the strategies Which of the following strategies should the CISO consider implementing? A, replace all the NGFWs with UTM devices. B, deploy UTM devices alongside the next-gen firewalls with both sets of devices fully active. C, switch off the next-gen firewalls and deploy UTM devices, but only activate UTM when detecting a threat. Or D, implement UTM devices internally and maintain NGFWs at network boundaries. And they're really asking us to think like a manager or to think like a CISO on this question, as it states. And when we want to think like a manager or think like a CISO, we want to consider what is going to save the most money, because we're not making any money in IT, right? In cybersecurity, we're just trying to save money. So what is going to save the company the most money and cause the least amount of downtime or disruption? Those are the things you always got to consider. What's going to save money and what's going to cause the least amount of disruption. And sometimes that answer isn't the most secure answer. It's the one that saves the most money and causes the most downtime for the organization. But here's the deal. You want least management complexity, and B is the most complex. Exactly. Replace all next-gen firewalls with UTM devices. That's going to cost a lot of money and probably cause a lot of downtime. I don't like that answer. B, deploy UTM devices alongside with both sets fully active. That's possible. Switch off the NGFWs, but deploy the UTM devices, but only activate UTMs when detecting a threat. So if we switch off the next-gen firewalls and we deploy these fancy UTM devices, but we only turn them on and activate them when we're detecting a threat, well, what happens all those other times where we miss threats, or we're not detecting, or we're just in a operational mode? My mind goes to D, implement the UTM devices internally and maintain NGFs at network boundaries. I don't like B. I don't like C because it sounds very insecure. I'm going to go with the D. Anybody else with D? Sandex is going with me on D. Anybody else on the D train? Let's go. Organizations actively create a balance between enhanced security and manageable complexity when they deploy UTMs internally, while also maintaining next-gen firewalls at network boundaries. Let's go. And the incorrect answer is by replacing the next-gen firewalls with the unified threat management devices, organizations actually boost a variety of security features, but this also introduces significant management complexity due to the increased features that UTM devices have to manage. Organizations face management issues due to potential conflicts and redundancies between security features when they deploy UTM devices alongside fully active NGFWs. I can also see that. And then when organizations turn off next-gen firewalls and only activate UTM devices upon detecting a threat, they could potentially leave their network vulnerable when the UTM devices are inactive, which is exactly what we said. Let's go. A newly established e-commerce company experienced increased web-based attacks while, let's read that again. A newly established e-commerce company experienced increased web-based attacks on its online shopping platform. As a result, the company installed WAFs, or web application firewalls, to enhance its security infrastructure. What primary function, now here's the question that they're really asking, what primary question should the network security manager ensure the WAF is performing to protect the online from the most common types of web-based threats, such as cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and cross-site request forgeries? A, monitor traffic and block DDoS attacks. B, inspect HTTPS traffic. C, validate input and output. Or D, encrypt data in transit. I know this one immediately because the answer to this one, if this was done across the board, cybersecurity professionals wouldn't have, the job market would be a lot smaller than it already is. I see C in chat. To rephrase the question, I'm working at a company. We've got an online application. We install the web application firewall. I could do anything. What's the takeaway? What does this firewall need to protect against? Some of the most common types of web-based threats, such as cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and cross-site request forgery. Remember how each of these attacks work. When I think of cross-site scripting, I think of a browser-based attack where you are tricking the victim's browser into reading JavaScript. I think of SQL injection attacks as more of a back-end attack, right? We're passing along SQL commands, and they're passing right through the web application, and they're going to that back-end database and getting information. Cross-site request forgery is a little bit different, but basically you're tricking the web browser to kind of do like a backdoor, right? Like you're also, maybe I trick DJ BSEC somehow to go onto his banking website. And in that, I get validated as well through a series of commands. The other answers make no sense for the type of attacks. Exactly. We're going to go with the only correct answer here, which is C, validate input and output. Right? And what does that look like? Well, that's more on the development side. That's more when we're building the application in the insecure coding concepts, right? So that when we pass an argument through an input field, whether it's you're leaving a comment, uploading a file, entering any field on a web application where the user can submit data of any kind, that's an input, right? And we validate that input on the back-end code, saying like, I don't know, but let's say the question says, what is your favorite color? And we predetermine a whole list of colors on the back end of the code. But if the argument is passed anything else or added on to the end of it, that input field gets sanitized and it returns back something, error. That answer doesn't make sense, mother trucker. Something like that. And a WAF would be on the front end before anything even hits. It's a firewall. So we're sending input through. It's looking for sets of strings and characters and saying, okay, is this a potential cross-site scripting attack? Is this JavaScript? Before it even hits the input field, we're validating that input. We're validating that the output is also legitimate. A network security analyst at a large organization must develop an effective strategy to secure the enterprise network infrastructure. The company operates in multiple regions with varying data regulations and faces increasingly sophisticated cyber threats. The analyst aims to implement appropriate security principles to minimize the network's attack surface. What key strategy should the network security analyst adopt to ensure the most robust security of the enterprise network infrastructure while minimizing the attack surface? A. Deploy firewalls at the edge of every network. C. Implement network segmentation and isolation. Or B, implement network segmentation and isolation. C, prioritize the use of public networks over private networks. Or D, ensure that all devices use the same security credentials. Tech Ricky in the chat. What's going on, brother from another mother? How you cooking? Good to see you. Got to spend some time with Tech Ricky at Wild West Hackin' Fest. Smart dude. And a good guy to hang out with, I might add. DJ BSEC. E, unplug everything and call it secure. Love it. Deploy firewalls at the edge of every network. Well, having the firewalls at the edge of every network might help, and it might ensure a more robust security of the network, but it doesn't do anything to really minimize your attack surface. I don't like that question. B, implement network segmentation. I do like that one quite a bit. Ensure that all devices use the same security credentials. Aren't we taught in like baby security 101, the infant class, preschool, pre-security, that's not something we want to be doing? So that one does not compute. DJ BSEC, what up, Ricky? Howdy, BSEC. I think the correct answer to me stands out as B, implement network segmentation and isolation. Because we are ensuring a more robust security of the enterprise network versus keeping a flat network. And we're minimizing our attack surface. Instead of having just one giant flat network to attack, there's segments of our network. Some of them might even be isolated. I agree with DJ BSEC. FYI, 90% of the time on these questions, you will want to go with segmentation. You will what to go with, but I think he meant to say want to go with. What? Oh, keep your eye on the ball, son. The ball. Let's go with B. Implement network segmentation and isolation. Implementing network segmentation and isolation is an effective way to minimize the attack surface. It divides a network into multiple segments or subnets, each acting as a separate network, thus isolating potential security threats and containing them within a particular segment. Boom. Moving on. The security manager of a multinational organization is on a mission to apply security principles to a newly planned regional office that will connect with its existing global infrastructure. This task aims to minimize the attack surface and construct suitable security zones. While developing the network architecture for the new office, what primary security aspect must the manager prioritize to certify the efficiency of the security zones and reduce the organization's attack surface? A, enabling ports, generic. B, increasing redundant network paths. C, setting up single sign-on. Or D, implementing network segmentation. My Hank Hill is fantastic. Thank you very much, Tech Ricky. Luann. I'm just here for some WD-40 and a tap and die. Branded Maverick, Tech Ricky, all coming in hot with implementing network segmentation. Agreed again. Construct suitable security zones. We have another office. We don't want to have a flat network. We don't want to enable ports. That's a terrible answer. Hopefully nobody picks that one. Increasing redundant network paths. So if you had more network paths doing the same thing, that's what redundancy means, right? A backup. Aren't you then increasing the attack surface? Because we're not doing anything to protect it here. We're actually making more of the same. And if they're already insecure by default, then you're just making much larger, more insecure, crappy infrastructure. JMod coming in hot. What's up, y'all? DJ B-Sec. Damn it, Bobby. Damn it, Bobby. Ball. I think setting up single sign-on is important for a network architecture, and it's important to cybersecurity. But really what the question is asking is, what should we prioritize to certify the efficiency of the security zones and to reduce the organization's attack surface? If we set up single sign-on, we're not necessarily, I guess in some ways we're reducing the attack surface, but not as much as implementing that network segmentation. Like DJ B-Sec said, when you see that on a question like this, that's typically going to be the answer. Network segmentation involves dividing a network into smaller parts, creating distinct security zones. The on-call line went off. Hold on, make sure it's not a security threat. It's not, and I'm not on call. Well, I'm always on call, but I'm not specifically the on-call day. Probably somebody's locked out. Enabling more ports unnecessarily without adequate security measures increases the potential entry points for malicious actors, thereby enlarging the attack surface rather than minimizing it. No doy, CompTIA. While redundancy increases network availability, like I just said, it does not correctly or directly contribute to reducing the attack surface or defining security zones, right? The question asks us to construct suitable security zones, and we want to certify the efficiency of the security zones and reduce the organization's attack surface. While single sign-on can enhance user experience and streamline access management, it does not exactly minimize the attack surface or contribute to defining security zones. Y'all are slaying it today, by the way. A company's growing IT department is weighing the pros and cons of different architectural models for its next project. The debate narrows down to cloud architecture versus traditional network architecture. During a team meeting, the head of IT security asked a newly hired network specialist to identify the primary security consideration when comparing cloud architecture to traditional network architecture. Based on the conversation in the IT department, which security consideration is most directly associated, with cloud architecture compared with traditional network architecture? And remember, especially with CompTIA and especially with the ISC2 stuff, when you see most, as you could tell in that last question, there was only one possible answer. Well, when you see most or which one best describes, CompTIA is usually going to give you two that are really close, one that's a maybe, and one that you can kind of count out. I know in the CISSP, from the little bit of SLAY Security Plus that I've been doing, or SLAY CISSP that I've been preparing for on my own, they all could be good answers. And you really have to determine which one is the best for the management, which one saves the company money, which one causes the least amount of downtime, and which one contributes more to the least complexity within deploying it. So again, just to recap, when you see the word most, there's probably going to be two answers that could be right answers, and then only one that's better. And typically with these, CompT will give you partial credit for if you get the one that's meh, but you don't get the one that's most, and you get the meh one, that could be an answer. We don't know how much you get, but you do get partial credit for those. All right, so we're comparing cloud with on-prem traditional network architecture. Which security consideration is closest? A, the need for regular network hardware firmware updates. I think we already seen this one. B, shared responsibility model with service providers. C, encryption of data transmitted over local networks. And requirement for secure physical access to network devices. Now, this isn't exactly the one, because the one that we did last time that was like this had the word nodes in it. I remember it said internal nodes. Midori K says B. Chillin' Spree says B. Branded Maverick says B. Chillin' Spree, welcome to the party. I love the Bruce Lee avatar you got there. Be like water. Water, it fills the vessel. It can break or it can crush. Hey buddies, I'm late to the party. Toasty Pops, good to see you. Welcome back to the party, pal. Hope you're doing well. Everyone's saying B down the line. Shared responsibility model with service providers. That is definitely a primary security consideration and a management, not just a security consideration, but it is a primary management consideration as well. What are we responsible for? What are you, the cloud provider with your computer in the closet, responsible for? Let's talk about, I think we're all on the same page. Chillin' Spree says, glad I made it. Tuned in kind of late. Does this time work for everybody? We're like getting way more people jumping on than when I started, which makes me think maybe we should bump it up a little bit. Dr. Jerry Ozier was asking me what time is best for him to advertise, and so if we need to switch it, let me know so I can get that information to him. Well, a need for regular network firmware updates is a consideration for both on-prem traditional as well as in the cloud. So that could be your maybe close answer. Shared responsibility model with service providers, we know that's probably the answer. Encryption of data transmitted over local networks. Well, this is local networks. This is applying to our local on-prem facilities. And so that is actually going to lean more towards the traditional architecture versus the on-cloud. If it said encryption of data in transit and then said period, well, that to me would be pretty important because we got to transmit that data across the wire to our cloud provider. But we know that it's saying over local networks, and so we can scratch that one off. And then D, requirement for secure physical access to network devices. Well, again, very much like question A or option A, that answer really applies to both on-prem architecture as well as our in the cloud. It has to be Saturday. I meant the time. We're doing 4 p.m. Eastern Standard, and we need to bump it to 5. We can. I wouldn't mind doing 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time if that works for everybody. Let me know. We can switch it up. I just got to tell Jerry because he's making a promo video for Slay Security Plus, and it was saying what time consistently, and it was Saturday at 4 p.m. But if we need to do 5, we can do that. Might get more people. So we know it's B, a shared responsibility for service providers. To recap, let's see. No, not there. Let's see. You guys can't see that, which is great. Give me 1 second, folks. Let's get this pulled up. Let's not do it like that, though. Let's go with the see if we can find shared responsibility. Oh, cloud. Wow, I cannot type today. Let's see if we talk about the mate, and if not, maybe we'll just look up matrix. There we go. Let's go back real quick. Let's just touch on this. What we call it's called the different things in cybersecurity. Some folks call it the shared responsibility model. Professor Messer calls it the shared responsibility matrix. As we see on an on-prem, so a traditional, everything's inside the data centers inside. The customer is responsible for the data center, the network, the hosts, everything, right? The security, everything, the data, making sure that it's up to date, everything. When we have infrastructure as a service, now we're looking at cloud models, right? So infrastructure as a service is a cloud model. Well, the provider, the cloud provider, so Azure, so Microsoft, Google Cloud, AWS, whatever, they're going to provide the physical hosts, the network, and the data center. The computer is just in their closet. You're going to provide the operating systems, the network controls, the applications, the identity and directory infrastructure. So are you going to use Entra on-prem? Are you going to use Entra? Are you just going to use an on-prem Active Directory solution? Are you going to use some kind of Google directory solution? Accounts and identities, right? So the customer is still responsible for all this. Well, if we move a little bit farther and we have platform as a service, well, we see the provider is going to manage all of these, all the way up to operating systems and a little bit of the network controls, a little bit of the applications, and a little bit of the identity directory infrastructure. And then we have to handle the accounts and identities, the devices, mobile and PC, and then the information is data. Okay. And then as we move on even farther down the line to software as a service, we see that the provider almost manages everything except for the information and data, the accounts and identities. And this is just a rough outline. This isn't the gospel, but this is a good way to get used to seeing that shared responsibility matrix between cloud provided services and your traditional on-prem. DJ BSEC, FYI, this is something to know and understand for CISSP. Good. Because I kind of do. This is at BSEC, and we're gonna. Have you done this one? Did you try the CISSP prep? Did you look at that by any chance? I use this one. I don't feel like unlocking my password manager, but the best and most accurate CISSP practice exams. All right, back to the question at hand. Perfection is perfected, so I let them understand. In cloud services, the division of security responsibilities between the cloud service provider and you and me, the customer creates the shared responsibility model. That's a primary concern regarding this question. Everything else that we talked about was what we had said before, right? Requiring firmware updates. That's going to be both. That's traditional and cloud. Making sure that the physical access to the network devices, again, that's something that we're going to make sure that we're doing both in the cloud and in our traditional on-prem facilities. And then, like we had as a class had outlined, the phrase local networks emphasizes that data transmission within our local infrastructure, not in the cloud. So I hope that helps. Ooh, an expert question. Let's go. A software engineer is tasked with identifying vulnerabilities within the network architecture. When evaluating the use of a particular architecture and selection of controls, what should not be considered as part of the architectural considerations? A, port security, B, costs, C, availability, or D, risk transference. A software engineer is tasked with identifying vulnerabilities within the network's architecture. When evaluating the use of a particular architecture and selection of controls, what should not be considered as part of architectural considerations? Well, risk transference should not be considered. I agree with BSEC. Port security is important. Costs are important. Availability are important. Isn't risk transference just insurance, basically, give or take? BSEC, correct me if I'm wrong, at a 1 million foot view, you're transferring that risk. You're saying, nah, we got insurance. We don't need to do any vulnerability management. This is a good question. I don't know if I call it expert, but this is definitely a good question. D indeed, Chillin Spree says. Midori K coming in hot saying D as well. Toasty Pop says D. I think we're all in the same page on this one. Right? Port security is pretty important when we're talking about identifying vulnerabilities within the network infrastructure. Or a selection of controls. Cost, well, how much is it going to cost? That's really important, especially if you're at that management level. The availability of the controls and architecture is important. Risk transference is the last thing you should be considering, right? That's going to come later. Exactly. TJBSEC says, and it could be something to think about, but that said, I don't think you're doing it in this scenario. I agree. And especially the software engineer is not going to be doing it either. Midori K has a question for you, TJBSEC. How close is the boson, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, material to the actual test? All right, back to the question. Of all these considerations, which should not be considered as part of an architectural consideration, risk transference, send it. Whoa, we are not correct, team. We missed that one. Port security is not considered an architectural consideration, but it does prevent a device attached to a switch port from communicating on the network unless given MAC addresses to other protection profile. Cost consideration, availability consideration. Wow. Risk transference involves transferring the risk in another entity, such as through insurance or contractual agreements, which can affect architectural considerations by altering who is responsible for maintaining certain risks. Yeah, that's true. I probably should have broke the question down a little bit more in my head. I see that now. Okay. Should have flagged that one. The network security engineer at a financial corporation is reviewing the current firewall setup. The corporation faces threats from various cyber attacks, some of which leverage application-specific vulnerabilities. The engineer is considering whether to deploy Layer 4 or Layer 7 firewalls for enhancing security. If the primary concern is to secure against application-specific attacks, which of the following strategies should the network security engineer consider implementing? Deploy Layer 4 firewalls on all network edges. Rely solely on Layer 4 firewalls for internal traffic. C. Deploy Layer 7 firewalls on all network edges. Or D. Use Layer 4 firewalls for all internet-facing applications. If the primary concern is to secure against application-specific attacks, and we know that layer 7 is the application layer, we just discussed that layer 4 is the network, layer 4 is the transport layer. I like 7 as well. Deploy layer firewalls on all network edges. I think we're all in agreement here. Let's see how we do on this one. Layer 7 firewalls were correct, also known as the application layer firewalls, have the ability to inspect, control, and often modify application level data and are effective against application specific attacks. Boom, we got it. Well, why are the other ones incorrect? Well, B, deploying a layer 4 firewall on all network edges can secure against network level attacks, but it is not ideal for application specific attacks, as these firewalls mainly operate on the transport layer and do not have deep packet inspection capabilities. Boom. Relying solely on layer 4 firewalls for internal traffic would miss application specific vulnerabilities and attacks, and these firewalls do not expect application level data. And then again, layer 4 firewalls are more effective against attacks on the network transport layer, not the application layer. So that one's pretty straightforward. We're almost through it. We're going to get through this test before we call it a day. An organization cybersecurity team has recently set up a new firewall and intrusion detection system to strengthen the security of its enterprise infrastructure. The IDS, however, has sent a high number of false positive alerts, which hampers efficient threat monitoring. Been there. The team believes adjusting firewall rules will decrease the false positives without tweaking the network security. What strategies should the cybersecurity team implement to fine-tune their firewall rules to reduce IDS's false positives in securing a robust security infrastructure? A, disable firewall rules for less critical services. B, establish firewall rules for specific threat intelligence. C, increase the intrusion detectives, the IDS's sensitivity level. Or D, create firewall rules to allow all traffic through. All traffic. Well, what is a false positive? What's a true positive? What's the difference between the two, right? A false positive is where it says that it's something malicious, something unauthorized, and we look and it's actually something benign. It's not something, it's something harmless, or it's something that is supposed to be going on. It's a false positive. A true positive, on the other hand, that's something that we don't want our systems to miss, right? That is a true positive. That is something that is an actual threat coming through the line. That is an actual piece of malware, code being executed, unauthorized access, something like that, right? So that's a true positive versus a false positive. And there's a couple more. There's four in that category of false positives and true positives. But those are the two that you're going to see most in the Security Plus. Well, we don't want to disable firewall rules. We don't want for less critical services. We don't, because if we disable the firewall rules for less critical services, right, and we consider them less critical, but they're still a service, and let's say an attacker is able to take advantage of that less critical service, well, what's to say from there they can't pivot or conduct some kind of privilege escalation in that less critical service, move about your network, gain, increase their privileges, and move laterally through your network until they do hit a domain controller or a SQL server or something that is more sensitive. And we definitely don't want to create a firewall rule to allow all traffic through, because that would defeat the purpose of having the firewall. So we're left with B and C. Establish firewall rules for a specific threat intel, or C, increase the sensitivity level. Well, if you increase the sensitivity level, that means it's going to be even more sensitive to false positives, and you might even get a higher number of false positives. YOLO, send it all. Tech Ricky says, if you roll the dice and pick D, no one calls you until you're ransomwared. That's fair. Yeah. Man, my IPS doesn't have any alerts on it today. I wonder why. So we don't think it's C because then you're gonna have more alerts. Correct answer, as class is saying, is B. Correctamundo team. By basing firewall rules on specific threat intel, we can more accurately filter out potential threats while reducing false positives and maintaining security. And there's a whole nother subset of cybersecurity and studies that you should be taking on threat intelligence. Where do you get that threat intelligence? Where does it come from? How do you collect it? And then how do you implement it into your infrastructure? It's a whole process, and there's jobs that are just in that threat intelligence, threat hunting, providing that intelligence. And AI, while it's good, will never be as good as a human. Well, you need both. Work together, I guess I should say. Disabling firewall rules for less critical services exposes the network to threats targeting those services, leading to possible security breaches. Exactly what I said. Increasing the ID's sensitivity could increase false positives, right? And adding more noise to the threat detection. And what happens when you have more false positives and then more false positives, you tend to get alert fatigue, and then you start ignoring alerts and possibly missing true positives. And then allowing all the traffic through the firewall would be highly risky, as it would expose the network to potential threats, making it easier for malicious entities to gain access to the network. Pretty straightforward. An enterprise's IT security team is implementing a new infrastructure design to optimize security. The team evaluates various security principles, considering the organization's expanding remote workforce and increasing reliance on cloud resources. Given the changing dynamics of the enterprise infrastructure, what should the IT team prioritize to ensure a robust security posture for both on-prem and cloud environments? A, least privilege. B, network segmentation. C, allow all outbound traffic. Or D, centralized storage without backups. Come on. Oh, the Rich 464 coming in hot. Hello, Team SC. Checking in on my lunch break. Love the 12th shift life. Man, brutal. Well, thank you for joining us, the Rich 464. It's good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Chillin' spree. Hey, the Rich 464, they say. Let's go. This one's really straightforward. I think this should be more of an easy question. I don't know what you guys say. We're picking two best options. We want to ensure robust security posture for both on-prem and cloud environments. Allow all outbound traffic. That doesn't sound right, because what if your company is visiting known malicious sites or command and control servers or data exfiltration, and then centralize all your data storage without backups? That sounds good. Probably saves money, saves space on our beat up servers and our beat up data centers. So we're just going to centralize it, put it all in one place. There's no need to back it up either. So these are pretty straightforward. It is painfully obvious 1 and 2. Least privilege will always be a viable option when you see these questions. Remember, least privilege in cybersecurity is this model where we're only, guitar pick, I've been looking for this one. Least privilege is this framework or model paradigm where we're only giving systems, persons, whatever, only the amount of authorization and only amount of permissions enough to do their jobs, and that's it. And then even sometimes at an admin level, you get those admin credentials in some enterprise organizations or some enterprises, for a limited amount of time. So maybe it's just enough time to do your job, and then it's automatically, you got to go back to the well and reestablish those admin credentials. So least privilege, and then obviously network segmentation is something we want to look at. The least privilege principle ensures that users, and you can add devices too, right? Systems sometimes shouldn't be able to access everything on the network. So that can apply to users and devices have only the access they need, reducing the risk of insider threats and accidental data breaches. It is both vital in cloud and on-premise environments. We're almost done, team. A software company implements Secure Shell or SSH to manage remote servers securely within its enterprise infrastructure. The IT department is aware of the risks associated with improper SSH configurations and wants to optimize the settings to minimize those risks. To improve security and protect against potential vulnerabilities, what configuration should the IT department implement for the SSH protocol to enhance the secure management of remote servers in the enterprise infrastructure? Disable SSH version 2 and only use version 1. That doesn't sound good. Implement public key authentication for SSH. I like that. Enable root logins for SSH. And D, use weak encryption. Use weak encryption algorithms for SSH. Who writes this question? We're going to go back to the Professor Messer stuff if we keep getting these bump questions. Rich464, are you working in hospital cybersecurity? Hit me up. I am. It's brutal. Yeah, these answers. Okay, we don't want to use weak encryption, right? That's going to increase our attack surface and possibly lead to data breaches and unauthorized access. Enabling root logins for SSH, again, increases your attack infrastructure, and if that root login credential is ever compromised, then you're really screwing the pooch. Excuse my French. A, disable SSH version 2 and only use SSH version 1. So use a deprecated version, maybe with known CVEs out there and exploits. Yeah, that doesn't sound right. And then implement public key authentication for SSH. I think that's the only right answer here. Correct answer. Good job, team. Is to implement that public key authentication to provide more security than password-based. The other 3 answers are incorrect for the exact reasons that we just said. This is the second to last answer. This is expert. Excuse me. A company has expanded its operations to a new location and is setting up its network infrastructure. A significant part of this setup includes strategically placing devices for optimal security and efficiency. How should the network security manager decide the optimal placement of the intrusion detection systems in the new network topology to ensure maximum visibility and efficiency without impacting overall network performance? In other words, we're setting up or expanding its operations to a new location. We want to implement IDSs. Where do we put them to make sure that they work and that we don't slow down the network? A, place the IDS outside the firewall. B, place the IDS at the end of the network. C, place the IDS directly behind the router. Or D, place the IDS near the servers. Remember, it says IDS and not IPS. So do that with what you will. IPS is an intrusion prevention system. Remember, IDS is only detect and then alert, whereas an IPS actually, if the rules are set up right, it prevents, it drops. So an IPS will typically drop the packet, the malicious packet or the malicious communication. And in some cases, it'll drop and then reset. So it'll reset that TCP handshake. A, place the IDS outside the firewall. Meh. Place the IDS at the end of the network. Meh. Place the IDS directly behind the router. Maybe. D, place the IDS near the servers. Meh. I think it's C as well. Let's see if class has anything different. Maybe BSEC has something different for us. Uko asks, Aditi Diong, Uko asks, I have a question. When will Security Plus change from 701 to 801? Ooh, not for a long time. Probably 3 to 4 years, because they just changed to 701. You'd be totally good taking 701 now. I like C. Sheldon Spree says jamming. Yeah, I like to put on lo-fi and find what key it is and then just come up with stuff. Boom. Placing the IDS directly behind the router ensures visibility of all incoming and outgoing traffic, which is crucial for detecting any unusual patterns or potential threats. Incorrect answers. Placing the IDS outside the firewall exposes it to all internet traffic, including a ton of noise and potential direct attacks on the IDS itself, which is not optimal. Placing the IDS at the end of the network could result in only seeing outbound traffic, thus limiting its visibility and effectiveness. While placing the IDS near the servers could potentially provide some visibility into traffic going to and from the servers, it will not give it a comprehensive view of all network traffic. All right, team, that was the last question. 85%. Space Taco study and jam session. I love it. All right, team, 85%. We're going to do better next time. This was a little bit more difficult here towards the end. We got through all these questions, which is nice to know that we can pause this. We're going to continue with the CompTIA live practice questions. I think next week we'll probably sneak in some PBQs so that as you're preparing for your CompTIA Security Plus exam. One of the issues that I found was it was hard to get some hands-on PBQs or at least see somebody walking through them. Cybercraft has some pretty good videos, but I think it's fun that we do it here as a team as well. So I think for our next session, which will most likely be next Saturday. I know it's Thanksgiving weekend, but that doesn't stop the studying from happening. And then we're going to keep to that 4 o'clock time until I get enough people that drop in chat. If you're watching this on Team Replay and you say, hey, I would have been there if it had been a little bit later, we'll consider bumping to 5 o'clock Eastern time. Right now it is 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us for Slay Security Plus. My name is Jesse J. You all are Slay. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care of each other. And until next time, stay secure.